you also need to think about the network when it comes to your endpoint as well. So it's one thing for us to control inbound, outbound access on the perimeter side. Is another thing to do it at the endpoint side. And in today's world, it's not enough to just control network on your perimeter firewall. A lot of people work from home. There's other types of traffic that you're not gonna have visibility. Your perimeter firewall is not gonna be able to deter. And network control at the endpoint is crucial when you can block outbound and inbound access that's not trusted, especially when it comes to inbound access, right? We don't want to allow access to your servers, for example, from untrusted sources. So one of the big things that we see happening is remote encryption attacks, which happens by, an unmanaged device being vulnerable because a hacker can connect to it and he can encrypt their data remotely. And that's something that we don't want to continue to allow happening. So I'm going to share here my screen. See if you guys can see that. And I'm going to share with you network control policies. So a host-based firewall solution here. The idea is, especially when he's talking about inbound traffic, is when it comes to zero trust, is continue to allow what's needed to run. So you can make policies to permit that, and then block everything else by default. You don't want IoT devices reaching out to your servers. You don't want remote encryption attacks happening. So when you can be granular about what you are permitting at the endpoint level, you can really reduce a lot of threats. Because a lot of ransomware attacks do start in the network side of things, and of course, it goes on to impact the endpoint. So one of the great things that you can do with a host-based firewall solution like network control is the ability to also be granular when it comes to network traffic. For example, maybe in your environment, you do need to allow your IT team to access your servers remotely. So you can open port 3389 to allow that to happen. But there is no reason to allow anybody else to access the servers remotely, right? Even if it's a machine in your environment. So you can do it the traditional way and use the IP addresses to say, okay, only these IPs can access this servers. But in today's world, this is not sufficient because IPs change all the time with the HCP. So a better way is to use dynamic access control lists, right? Where even if IPs change, you can still allow the traffic to go through if it's coming from a trusted source, if there can be a handshake that can authenticate that connection. One of the ways you can do that is through objects. In this case, your objects are computers or computer groups that have the Torlocker agent installed. So you can limit traffic not only based on the IP, but based on whether or not the machine has a Torlocker agent installed, and if it belongs to a specific computer group. So here I'm saying only the IT team can access my servers remotely. If another machine in my environment tries to access my servers remotely, it won't be able to. So this is really powerful because you are adding an additional handshake to the connection and you're further segmentizing your environment. You're not just allowing that port open for your internal network, you are allowing it for a specific group of users. And I have something here to show you, another thing here to show you as well, which is a very quick snippet of those policies being implemented real world. So here you're going to see that I'm going to attempt a remote RDP connection. And notice that it allows me to do so no problem because I am part of the IT team. So it allows me to connect to the server. Perfect. Now, what would happen if, let's say, you had a threat actor in your environment who, let's say, he even stole your RDP credentials and he's trying to remote in to your servers. You're going to go ahead, try to connect. You keep spinning. Nothing's happening. And the reason why it's because that handshake is not taking place. That machine doesn't have a Torlocker agent installed. It's a rogue machine. It's not part of the IT team. So it's unable to connect to the server. So with a very simple policy like that at the endpoint level, controlling your network traffic, you can limit this type of attack from succeeding. And it's not difficult to implement either. It's something that is just a matter of opening the ports for the people that need it and blocking by default for everybody else. And of course, IOC detection and response, it's also important. So again, that EDR side of the house, again, there's a reason why it's at the bottom of the list is because it's still important, but it should be there as more like a plan B instead of being the basis of your security stance, even when it comes to the network traffic. Any questions, guys, so far from anybody? I know I'm talking a lot here, so take a little break for water.
No, yeah, it's a lot of good stuff going on here, and this is, is this all? I'm sure you'll get into it, but I can manage this all in one portal. Is this a, you know, what's it look like to, I guess, really implement this? I'm sure you'll get into this later, but learning the environment and then getting my IT team, up to speed and on board. Uh, I assume,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, I can definitely have to go over that. And it's one of the things like that I mentioned in the beginning is with our locker, we want to make sure that zero trust is something that's easy to implement and to manage as well. So one of the things that you get with Trilocker is as soon as you install the Trilocker agents, we don't wanna block everything right away. That would be too bad. That would be too disruptive. We wanna learn what's in your environment first, so there's a learning period. By default, it's 21 days, but that can be shortened or extended on this needed basis. And what is it gonna do? It's gonna learn what you already trust in your environment. What are the applications that you're already allowing your users to run? And it's gonna make it's gonna make a list of those applications and also make policies to continue to allow these apps to run in your environment. So as you can see here, I have a lot of applications that I'm using in my machine, but I didn't have to come here myself and create these policies one by one. The Tarlocker learning mode did this for me automatically. So this helps speed up the implementation of zero trust and reduce the amount of hours you have to put in to implement this. And when it comes to managing this, we also need to think there are other things that we can do to make this easy to manage. For example, it's one thing for us to learn what's in your environment today, but we understand updates happen weekly, monthly, and updates are new files. And since we're zero trust and we block by default, if we don't recognize as files, it would get blocked. So that's where built-ins comes in. Built-ins are, and you see this as a tag here. We have a team here at Trilocker that checks with these programs constantly for new updates, and we capture the hashes of those files and we add them to their application definitions in Trilocker so that the updates don't get blocked. And we do this for over 7,000 applications. So all those main business apps that you can think of, chances are we already have a built-in for. So this helps. Also, you don't have to be worried that updates are gonna get blocked. So when Windows releases an update on a patch Tuesday, our team is already checking with Microsoft, grabbing those hashes, adding them to the Windows core files application so that your updates go smoothly. And then we also need to think about the applications in your environment that we don't have a built-in for, maybe some custom applications. And our learning algorithm can not only learn the hashes of those files, but it can also do what we call custom roles, which is adds some flexibility where, like a past version is going to change, the version number is going to change for the file, but if the certificate is the same, we're still going to allow it to run. You can create your own custom rules as well. And with ThreatLocker, you also have a solutions engineer that can help you with best practices, with getting yourself onboarded. So it's a very simple thing to implement once you know how to create these custom rules. So zero trust would be something very difficult to do or very difficult to implement. It would require a lot of IT power, a lot of man hours, but with a platform that you can centrally manage all of this, and when it has this very good learning period, all that built-in support happening in the background, it is very feasible and very, very doable. So with security, we always need to think about how to manage it, and that's what this learning period, these built-ins are aimed to do. Is it means to help you get going faster with zero trust and to manage it smoothly as well. Go back here, and then the other thing here, on almost finishing here, guys, is we also need to think about a little bit the cloud as well, right? Because we understand a lot of times nowadays we have hybrid environments. We have environments that you still have servers in-house, but you also have a lot of things in the cloud. And zero trust doesn't need to be confined just on the endpoint directly. There are some things that you can do in the cloud as well to help you with adhering to zero trust, like just by ensuring you're working with good companies. There are a lot of cloud solutions out there, and we need to do our due diligence to ensure that those companies are trustworthy, that they can do what you expect them to do. Dual factor authentication, huge thing. Um, a lot of times people think that just because it's in the cloud that they are responsible to security, and that's just not true, right? Security needs to We are still responsible for security in the cloud, and there are things that you can do to um, adhere to zero trust and adhere to the principle of least privilege in the cloud as well. IP restrictions wherever possible, sending logs to your SOC or your MDR solution as well. Those are things that can help you not just trust on anything by default just because it's the cloud, but things that you yourself can do uh, for due diligence to make sure that your entire environment is adhering to zero trust, which is really the most effective way at fighting malware, ransomware in 2025.